He puts out his arms like this, and it appears that he's brandishing a rifle with one hand extended and one, what I would consider the trigger finger. And he starts walking around the interview room, and then he starts going, and then he walks around, and then he does.
One of the dudes involved in Julio's murder just folded. Big time. Davey and Murphy, caught up in that interrogation room, really thought he was alone, but he had no idea the cameras were still rolling. What did he do? He straight up acted out the whole crime like it was a scene from a movie. He didn't just give himself up. Murphy basically gift-wrapped the entire case for the prosecutors. And to top it off, he name-dropped others like it was nothing. That slip-up might have just sealed his fate, and maybe a few others too. Now let's rewind to the chaos. The victim, Charles Andrew Jones II, but on the streets, everyone knew him as Foolio, a rising rapper who had the city buzzing. June 23rd, 2024 was supposed to be a night of celebration for Foolio's 26th birthday, but instead, it ended in bloodshed outside a Holiday Inn in Tampa, Florida. Dude got taken out in a hit that shook the whole scene. But here's what makes it even crazier. This wasn't no heat-of-the-moment mess. Nah, this was a calculated hit. These guys were lurking, tracking Foolio all night like it was a mission. It wasn't sloppy. It was cold, planned, and vicious. And now, turns out these so-called killers thought they were untouchable, like they were in some movie or something. They acted like they had it all figured out, moving in silence, but messed around and forgot the cameras don't blink. What kind of mastermind gets caught slipping reenacting a murder? Madness. What these dudes didn't realize is that their own cocky moves and straight-up foolishness just handed the prosecutors the golden ticket. We're talking evidence so solid, even the slickest defense attorneys in the game are probably looking at it like, how we supposed to flip this? It's that bad. Everything started unraveling inside an interrogation room at the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. That's where Davey and Murphy, one of the 5 suspects in Julio's murder, was getting pressed by the cops. This 27-year-old, who's allegedly tied to the 1200 gang, had been ducking the law for over 6 months before they finally snatched him up on January 6th, 2025, thanks to a team up with the U.S. Marshals. Now picture this whole thing. Murphy's in the hot seat, detectives going all in, asking every question under the sun, trying to trip him up. They're throwing pressure from every angle, just waiting for a crack. And Murphy, he's sitting there trying to play it slick, answering just enough to seem like he's cooperating, but making sure not to spill on himself or his crew. But what he didn't know? That camera never stopped rolling. While he thought he was being clever, the whole room was a setup, and his own actions turned into evidence. That confidence, it backfired hard. The tension in that room was heavy, like thicker than concrete heavy. Detectives were on Murphy's neck, drilling him non-stop about where he was the night Foolio got taken out, who he was sliding with, and what part he played in this whole deadly setup. They weren't letting up, not even a little. Then came that moment, the one that flipped everything upside down, the moment that had the entire city whispering, calling Murphy the dumbest dude in Jacksonville. So here's what went down. The detective stepped out to take a break, left Murphy sitting there by himself. Now any smart person would have just kept chilling, kept their mouth shut, but not Murphy. Nah, he made what might go down as the most reckless move of his life. He must have thought he was finally alone. No eyes, no ears, no pressure. But what he didn't know was that the surveillance cameras were still rolling, catching every twitch, every move, every little thing he was doing. And what he did next, man, it blew everybody's mind. This dude started acting out the whole hit. According to detectives at his bond hearing on January 16th, 2025, Murphy was caught on video making gun gestures, pretending like he was holding a rifle, doing full-on shooting motions. Like, who does that in an interrogation room? The man basically gave prosecutors a visual demo of what went down, and now the footage is set to play center stage in court. Can you even believe this? Here's a grown man facing either life locked up or possibly even the electric chair, and he's in that room acting out the same murder he's being grilled about, like he's reliving it scene by scene. And it wasn't just something small. The detective who had to take the stand later was so shook by what he saw, he literally got up in court and demonstrated Murphy's wild behavior. Right there in front of the judge, lawyers, and everybody in the room, he showed exactly what the surveillance cameras caught that day. It wasn't just some random fidgeting or nerves either. Nah, this wasn't no regular stress response. Murphy looked like he was celebrating, like he was relishing it. That's the part that really had folks twisted. He wasn't scared or anxious. He seemed like he was enjoying the moment, maybe even bragging through his actions. It was eerie, and it had the courtroom locked in. The prosecution jumped all over it, arguing that Murphy only acted like that because he thought the cameras were off, and that's what made it so bad. It came off like the real him slipped out the second he thought no one was watching. That's not just evidence, that's damning. And to really grasp how reckless and straight up foolish that moment was, you gotta understand just how deep the whole Foolio murder case runs. This wasn't no heat-of-the-moment mess or some random street fight gone wrong. Not even close. This was the bloody climax of a decade-long gang war that had already left a trail of bodies across the city. We talking about years of tension, retaliation, and bloodshed. Julio, deep in the 6-block set of KTA, better known as the Kill Them All gang, was right in the heart of it. KTA had been locked in a brutal war with rival crews like ATK, Top Killers, and 1200 out east. And this war wasn't just playing out in lyrics. It was real, raw, and violent. This wasn't just some rap beef that stayed behind a mic or a screen. Nah, this was street warfare, with social media as the fuel, diss tracks as the warning shots, and the violence spilling into families, blocks, and communities that are still feeling the pain. So when June 2024 rolled around, Julio was just trying to vibe and celebrate his birthday, hitting up multiple spots across Tampa. But what he didn't know was that his enemies were tracking his every move. After the pool party, the suspects followed him to Teaser's Gentleman's Club, then to Truth 18 nightclub, and finally to the Home 2 Suites, where the deadly ambush went down. Julio had no idea he was being hunted that night. His ops were tailing him low-key, waiting for that perfect window to strike. And here's the part that makes it even more heartbreaking. His own social media posts might have led them straight to him. He was posting in real time.
Hey, the pool party start today at 5, 6 o'clock. If you already got the address, pull up, man. You got the address, pull up. If you need the address, DM me right now. The pool party start at 5, 6 o'clock.
Flexing his birthday moves online, not knowing those same posts were giving his killers a step-by-step playbook of where to find him. Julio was basically dropping a GPS pin for his killers with every post he made that night.
We came deep for my birthday, man. Everybody come like a stare. No cap, man. You know what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? We deep as hell. We deep as hell, 20 deep.
Real talk, his social media gave them a live map of his every move. And when they finally struck, it wasn't sloppy, it was military-level precise. 3 shooters pulled up with high-powered rifles and let off shots that left 31 shell casings scattered all over the crime scene. This wasn't no wild, unplanned shootout. This was a coordinated ambush, the kind that takes serious planning and tight coordination. These weren't just some random dudes wilding out. These were people who moved like they had a blueprint. And it wasn't long before the law swooped in and arrested 5 suspects for Julio's murder. The lineup: Sean Gathright, just 18, Isaiah Chance, 21, Alicia Andrews, 21, Rashad Murphy, 30, and Davian Murphy, 27. All of them allegedly connected to the rival gangs that had been beefing with Julio's crew for years. The streets knew these names, and now the courtroom does too. And yo, the evidence is looking real ugly for them. Surveillance footage caught these suspects trailing Julio all over Tampa that night, shadowing him like they had tabs on every move. It wasn't just footage either. Phone records started spilling too. Texts between the suspects included messages from Rashad Murphy where he referred to Don Julio as a diss, throwing dirt on the rapper's name in the middle of all this. But that ain't all. Digital receipts showed Rashad Murphy had even booked an Airbnb in Tampa the day before the shooting. That screams premeditated. It's not looking good for them in court, and the pieces are all stacking up against every one of them. But it was Davian Murphy's straight-up clown show in that interrogation room that took this whole case to a new level of wild. Imagine this, dude's facing the most serious charges possible, maybe even the death penalty. And instead of staying low and lawyered up, he's in there acting out the exact crime he's being accused of like it's some kind of twisted play rehearsal. That moment was so wild, it ended up being center stage during his bond hearing. The hearing went on for 5 whole hours, and by the end of it, the judge had seen enough. Bond denied. The prosecution came in swinging, and they made a solid case that Murphy was way too dangerous to ever be back on the streets. And that little performance in the interrogation room, it basically torched any chance he had at freedom. The state's not playing around either. They've already announced that 3 of the suspects, Isaiah Chance, Sean Gathright, and Rashad Murphy, are facing the death penalty if convicted. Alicia Andrews, who's currently pregnant, isn't in line for capital punishment, but she's still got major charges hanging over her head. As for Davian Murphy, with the kind of evidence stacked against him and being pegged as one of the actual shooters, it's very likely he'll be looking at the death penalty too. His actions in that room didn't just hurt his case, they lit it on fire. But things in the courtroom were still moving slow. Alicia Andrews' trial was originally set for early January 2025, but that got delayed when her lawyer dipped out. Now she's got a new tentative court date floating around August 2025 or later. The rest of the crew, including Davian, are scheduled to go to trial in April 2026. This case ain't just about one murder, it's the fallout from a 10-year street war that finally caught up with everyone and took Foolio down in the crossfire. To really grasp the madness we saw in that interrogation room, you gotta understand the dark, violent world that created it. Julio's murder wasn't some random street mess. It was the brutal, bloody end to a gang war that's been raging for over a decade. We're talking dozens of lives lost, families torn apart, and entire blocks in Jacksonville turned into battlegrounds. This story ain't just about one murder. It's about a whole generation of young men caught in a cycle of revenge. A war that's been swallowing people up left and right. And in the middle of it was Charles Andrew Jones II, known in the streets as Julio Foolio. Born on June 21st, 1998, Julio came up in the Moncrief area of Jacksonville, a neighborhood where struggle was part of daily life. His childhood was tough, but the real turning point came in 2011 when his father was murdered in a shooting. Julio was only 13. That loss left a deep scar on him, one that pushed him even further into the streets. With no real outlet for grief or stability, he got tied up with the 6-block set of KTA, short for Kill Them All. This crew was known for moving heavy in the Rebolt area, and they stayed in the mix with all kinds of street dealings. Julio's music wasn't just entertainment, it was his truth. His lyrics painted the picture of survival in the trenches, the code of the streets, and the reality that every day could be your last. He spit about the beef, the pain, the payback, all of it. But that street rep, it came with a price. And on the other end of that deadly back and forth was another young man raised by the same chaos, shaped by the same streets. Keonta Tyrone Buller, who the rap world knows as Youngeen Ace, came from that same cycle of loss, struggle, and retaliation. Ace was born on February 12, 1998 in East Chicago, Indiana, but moved to Jacksonville when he was still young. He grew up with his mom and 11 brothers, all packed into a life full of struggle and survival. From the jump, things were rough. Just like Julio, Ace's life was rocked by tragedy when his father was murdered in 2011, the same year Julio lost his dad. 2 different boys, 2 different blocks, but the same pain set the stage for everything that came next. Ace eventually linked up with ATK, Ace's top killers, a gang that literally carried his name. That crew would end up standing toe-to-toe with Julio's 6-block set, and what started as street tension turned into a full-blown war. This wasn't just a rap rivalry or local beef. It became the center of a deadly saga that pulled in dozens of young lives. A war built on loyalty, betrayal, and revenge, and once you were in, there was no getting out. Things got real in 2017 when Ace's 18-year-old cousin Zion Malik Brown was gunned down. That killing is believed to be what sparked the modern-day bloodbath between the 2 factions. From there, the violence just kept climbing, each side taking hits and striking back harder than before. Then came June 2018, a night that would mark one of the darkest moments in the conflict. Ace was the target in a mass shooting at St. John's Town Center. He was hit, but survived. The same couldn't be said for the 3 people with him, his brother Trayvon Bullard and 2 close friends, Royale III Smith Jr. and Jacoby Desha Groover. All 3 were killed in what was believed to be a hit carried out by members of 6 Block. That ambush wasn't just another shootout, it was a message. And from that moment on, the streets knew. This beef had crossed the line from street talk to all-out war. What happened next showed just how cold and public this street war really was.
Down on my foot, I see him bleeding, but I'm like, I see the front. See, I ain't show y'all the back side of my ankle. The front and the back side of my ankle, like, they bleed.
Julio wasn't staying quiet. He went straight to social media and started throwing heavy shots. One of the most disrespectful moments, he posted a pic of a t-shirt that said, "Rest in 23, mocking Royale Devin Smith Jr., one of the 3 people who got killed alongside Youngeen Ace's brother in that 2018 mall shooting. That one post, it lit a new fire under an already out-of-control situation. From there, the violence got even worse. We're talking about back-to-back years of retaliations that shook entire neighborhoods. In January 2019, Willie Addison, better known in the streets as Boss Goon, was shot and killed outside Paradise Gentlemen's Club, another hit believed to be tied directly to this deadly beef. That same year, more bodies dropped. Lil Buck, Charles Quentin McCormick Jr., and Bibby, Adrian Denard Gaynor Jr., both repping KTA, were killed in separate incidents that were seen as ATK firing back hard. It was a brutal pattern. One side hits, the other strikes back louder. No breaks, no peace, just war. Julio became a marked man through it all. He survived multiple attempts on his life, one in July 2020 out in Houston, and another in October 2023 back in Jacksonville. But even after those close calls, he didn't hide. He talked about it on Instagram Live like it was just another day in the life.
What you think about Foolio dying, cuz? That's sad Twin, I ain't gonna lie, bro. Y'all boys in the street, y'all didn't leave the streets alone, twin. All condone and like that. It's so funny, cause me, bro, like we cool, like we was cool and feel me, him, like we cool. And I was just so funny. I was just talking to them. I'm like, bro, you gotta stop the way, bro. You know, I love y'all here. Like, stop the way, bro. Like, you know, I f with you, rich.
And every time he dodged a bullet, it only made his enemies more locked in on finishing the job. Both sides weren't just fighting in the streets, they were beefing online and in music. Diss tracks turned into weapons. Social media turned into a war zone. Foolio dropped tracks like When I See You, a remix packed with disrespect and direct shots. It exploded online, nearly 1 million views in just 12 hours. On the flip side of the war, ATK, led by Youngin Ace, clapped back in the most public, savage way possible. They dropped the viral diss track, Who I Smoke, and it blew up, racking over 14 million views in just 3 weeks. The song boldly named fallen 6 Block members, basically turning real-life murder into a hook and glorifying the violence like it was sport. But this wasn't just about shock value. These tracks were being used to disrespect, recruit, and even document the war. Rap became the battlefield. Law enforcement was watching too closely. The Jacksonville Sheriff's Office started using these music videos and lyrics as actual evidence in criminal cases. By January 2019, they were making arrests off what rappers were posting in plain sight. Then it got even more twisted. A third gang, 1200 out east, stepped into the picture. They aligned themselves with ATK and turned the war into a triangle of chaos. This alliance made things way more dangerous. Now there were more shooters, more enemies, and more targets. 2 of the suspects in Julio's murder, Rashad Murphy and Davian Murphy, were both affiliated with 1200, and their role in the hit shows just how deep this alliance ran. Police say this gang war has led to dozens of murders on both sides, calling it one of the deadliest conflicts Jacksonville has ever seen. And it wasn't just gang members catching bullets. Innocent people were getting caught in the crossfire too. Families were shattered. Neighborhoods were living in fear. The most heartbreaking example? The January 2025 murder of 7-year-old Brian Allen. He wasn't even involved. Just a little boy caught in a storm aimed at his cousin, a rapper linked to ATK. Brian's death shook the entire city. Police arrested 6 suspects, ages 17 to 24, all tied to 6 Block in connection to that killing. This war wasn't just claiming ops anymore, it was claiming babies. And that's when you know the streets had gone completely off the rails. Now this is where things take a wild left turn. The juiciest part of the whole saga. We're talking about one of Jacksonville's biggest rap stars and the swirling controversy around his potential connection to Julio's murder. Youngin Ace finds himself sitting smack in the middle of a messy mix of allegations, denials, and conflicting narratives that have had the streets buzzing non-stop since the day Julio got hit. Now, let's be clear. As of now, Youngin Ace has not been charged with anything related to Julio's murder. Still, the streets talk, and so do the headlines. His long-running beef with Foolio and his deep ties to ATK, the rival gang at the center of this war, have made him a central figure in the drama. Even though the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office says Ace isn't under investigation for the murder, they've confirmed they are keeping tabs on him, mainly because of his gang affiliations and how hot things still are in the streets. But during Davian Murphy's bond hearing on January 17, 2025, Ace's name came up a lot. That hearing went on for 5 hours, and in that time, police laid out just how closely Ace is connected to ATK and the deadly rivalry with Julio's 6 Block crew. Despite being a key figure in the law enforcement narrative, the state attorney's office has said loud and clear, they're focused on facts and evidence, and for now, they're not pursuing charges against Ace. But trust, the spotlight on him hasn't dimmed one bit. Now here's where things get crazy. During an Instagram live session on July 21st, 2024, Ace dropped a bombshell. He claimed that he and Foolio were actually cool at one point before the murder. Yup, Ace straight up said there was a time when they weren't enemies, they were on friendly terms. That revelation had fans and followers shook. How could 2 artists so deep in a gang war, throwing lyrical shots and catching real-life bullets, have ever been cool? It just made the whole story even more twisted, like maybe this war wasn't always personal, until it was. Yo, when that revelation hit, the entire hip-hop scene was stunned. These were 2 young men who'd been painted as deadly enemies. Their beef played out across countless diss tracks, interviews, and brutal posts online. But according to Youngin Ace, all that heat, it had been squashed behind closed doors before Foolio got murked. Nobody saw that coming. But wait, things got real messy real fast. Because just one day after Foolio was killed, on June 24th, 2024, Ace dropped a track called Do It, and fans lost it. The timing alone had people raising eyebrows, but the content of the song, that's where the controversy exploded. In the song Ace raps, "They called my phone, said they got the low. I told them do it." The streets immediately connected that line to Foolio's murder. Some took it as a cold response, almost like Ace was giving the green light. And to make things even more suspicious, the music video for Do It showed scenes that eerily resembled the hotel parking lot where Foolio got gunned down. People were asking, was this a diss, a warning, a flex, or just a cash grab off a tragedy? Either way, fans weren't buying the whole "we were cool" narrative anymore. The contrast between Ace claiming peace and then dropping a track that felt like a lyrical victory lap had folks questioning everything. Was Ace really mourning? Or was he using the moment to apply pressure and score plays? Whether it was a calculated move or just reckless timing, the video and lyrics only poured gasoline on the rumors that maybe Ace knew more than he was letting on. And maybe he wasn't as disconnected from Foolio's death as he claimed. Just when things couldn't get any messier, the internet blew up with a new twist, one that had everyone talking. A video started circulating online showing a masked man, claiming to be the one who pulled the trigger on Foolio. And what did he say? That Yungeen Ace paid him to do it.
I'm the one that smacked Foolio that night when he got dropped at his birthday celebration. I rock with Ace and them boys, you feel me? ATK, you feel me? I be in Jacksonville heavy. Ace had that money on his head, you know, Ace had them put that 10K up. Told me to slide, told me to smack Fool, because you know he got tired of that running his mouth playing all the
Sounds wild, right? But let's be real. There's zero verification. No face, no name, no legit source. The person behind the mask hasn't been identified, and law enforcement hasn't confirmed anything. Multiple hip-hop news outlets jumped in quick to shut it down, saying the claims were purely speculation and haven't led to any charges or active investigations involving Ace. Let's call it what it is. Anybody can throw on a mask and start talking crazy online. Doesn't mean a word of it is true. But that didn't stop the rumors from catching fire, especially with all eyes already on Ace.
Young and Ace has long been known in Jacksonville. We are consistently monitoring those groups. We have people that are always watching them.
Adding more layers to this already messy situation, Ace had his own legal run-in earlier that year. On April 15th, 2024, he got arrested in Jacksonville Beach for gun possession. The streets thought this might finally stick, but it didn't. By July 3rd, 2024, the charges were officially dropped due to lack of solid evidence. Court docs revealed that DNA and phone data couldn't tie Ace directly to the weapon. Prosecutors decided not to press forward, saying there was a low chance of winning the case. So once again, Ace walked out clean. But the situation highlighted just how hard it is for law enforcement to land charges on high-profile street figures, especially when they move smart and got strong legal defense. Even Sheriff TK Waters himself admitted that while Ace remains on their radar due to his gang affiliations, there's still no direct link between him and Foolio's murder, at least for now. Ace has been tied to local gang activity for years. That's no secret. But as Sheriff TK Waters made clear, charges can't be based on street rumors or gang affiliations alone. It's got to come down to evidence, and that's where the focus has stayed. So far, the only people officially charged in Foolio's murder are 5 suspects, all affiliated with ATK and 1200 Out East, the same crews tied to Yungeen Ace. That connection? Yeah, it's undeniable, and it's exactly why so many folks keep throwing Ace's name into the mix. But when it comes to the hard facts, the real weight of the case is stacked against the actual suspects: Rashad Murphy, Davian Murphy, Isaiah Chance, Sean Gathright, and Alicia Andrews. The receipts on these 5 are damning. Digital evidence uncovered text messages from Rashad Murphy referring to Don Foolio, a name used to mock Foolio after his death. Plus, records showed that Rashad booked an Airbnb in Tampa the day before the murder, a move that prosecutors are calling premeditated. And it doesn't stop there. Ballistic testing connected the weapons used in Foolio's murder to 4 other shootings and 1 homicide from 2022 in Jacksonville. That kind of forensic link is hard to argue with. Prosecutors have built their entire case on concrete, traceable evidence, location data, digital trails, and ballistic matches that tie these suspects directly to the hit. As for Yungeen Ace, his gang ties and beef with Foolio definitely help explain the background. But without a direct link to the murder, law enforcement is sticking with the suspects they can prove were involved. Now here's where things get even more complicated. Isaiah Chance, one of the accused, is claiming he's innocent. In May 2025, he took to Instagram to say the police got the wrong guys. He argued there's no clear footage of the shooters, no murder weapons recovered, and no shell casings that link him specifically to the trigger. So the question remains, is he telling the truth or just trying to beat the system? Either way, this trial's about to get real heated. Isaiah Chance's claim of innocence added a whole new layer of uncertainty to the case, and it clashed hard with the prosecution's strategy, which leans heavy on circumstantial and digital evidence. But let's be real, people claiming they're innocent in a criminal case, That's nothing new. Still, the streets and social media went crazy once Chance spoke out, and eyes swung right back to youngin' Ace. Public reaction to Ace's possible involvement has been mixed and intense. Some folks are convinced he had a hand in setting things up behind the scenes, especially with multiple suspects tied to his gang. Others argue he's just an easy target, someone being dragged through the mud just because of his rap beef with Foolio and the associations that come with it. Then came the Instagram post that poured gasoline on the fire. After his affiliates got arrested, Ace posted, "When you approach me, be ready to die or go to jail. That's my mentality." Now, whether that was just general street talk or something more targeted, it hit hard, especially considering the timing. Some saw it as a vague threat, others as a warning to his enemies, but in the context of the murder case, it raised major eyebrows. Law enforcement is clearly walking a tightrope when it comes to Ace. They're investigating the ties, watching the moves, and keeping tabs. But at the same time, they can't just throw charges based on who someone knows or what gang they claim. Without direct evidence, they've had to play it smart, balancing between what they see and what they can prove. And so far, Ace stays free, but far from out of the spotlight. Sheriff T.K. Waters has openly acknowledged the heavy level of surveillance being placed on high-profile gang figures like youngin' Ace. According to him, law enforcement is locked in, watching every move, every post, every lyric. This entire case shines a bright light on the blurred lines between music, gang life, and criminal activity. In the world of drill rap, both Foolio and youngin' Ace made names for themselves by documenting and dramatizing the violence surrounding them. Their music videos, bars, and social media presence didn't just entertain fans, they became evidence, and law enforcement has been using that digital footprint to piece together real-life crimes. Right now, the 5 suspects arrested in Foolio's murder are still sitting in custody, waiting for trials that could put them away for life, or even send them to death row. Meanwhile, Ace is still out here pushing his music career, but under constant watch. The pressure's real, and with every move he makes, authorities are looking for something that might link him to more violence in the city. Back in Jacksonville, the cycle continues. Young people in these neighborhoods are still facing the same choices: loyalty, survival, or escape. Most don't get all three. They hope their stories end different. But the streets don't always give you that chance. What this case exposed is raw and real. How social media beefs can end in bullets, how loyalty to a gang can cost you everything, and how the streets never forget. They always come collecting. Thanks for watching. If you were locked into this story, make sure to like, drop a comment, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget, click one of the boxes on your screen to check out more wild stories just like this one. See you in the next one.